welcome to an experiment where we are going to try and commentate on some onboard footage from a recent race that I've been doing. This was my first race of 2019. I had a super busy week leading up to this event, and this event itself was in some ways a last minute call up. The initial plan was that I was going to be coaching some of the Rinaldi Racing drivers, the gentleman drivers, but then Mugello asked me if I'd like to race in the Wochenspiegel Team Monschau cars, which are more popular for their racing in the VLN and Nordschleife races. So they have had a small fallout with the VLN because of BOP adjustments, which make the GT4 cars faster than GT3 cars at the Nordschleife, and have therefore decided to compete in the Creventec 24-hour series, of which the first event was the Mugello 12-hour, which you can see me driving here. So I was going to be paired with 3 of their regular drivers in the pro class, and yeah, we were just going to give it a go. My intention was actually just to keep them happy and do the best job that I could inside the car and outside the car, because at the end of the day, GT racing is about customer service, and these guys are customers of Rinaldi Racing. So even though they race under the Wochenspiegel Team Monschau name, operationally it's run by Rinaldi. So leading up to this event, I was in Monza on the Monday, then I had to drive to Paul Ricard on the Tuesday, test in Paul Ricard, then drive Wednesday to Mugello, and then from Thursday to Saturday drive the race, the 488 in Mugello. So it was a super busy week. I picked up somewhere along the way a little bit of a head cold, which I'm sure you can hear in this sound, so apologies for that, but you know, whatever. So the unique thing about the 24-hour series is that it's multi-category, the GT3s being the fastest cars on the track, but there's a whole bunch of other categories with slower cars. So you'll see in this onboard video, which I've kind of thrown you into the middle of a 1-hour stint, we're overtaking non-stop a bunch of cars, slower cars, while I'm chasing down my teammate Daniel Calvitz in the other Team Monschau Ferrari. So Calvitz here, he's actually in second place overall, and I'm stuck in about 11th place, a few laps behind, because we had some strategy problems. One of the strange things about this series is you don't have your own fuel rig. They've been operating now for about 15 years, and one of the unique things is there's 6 fuel rigs which look like normal petrol pumps in a separate sort of pit stop area, and sometimes if you come into the pit lane to refuel, there could literally be a queue of cars waiting to refuel, which can lose you minutes at a time. So I think at this race there were 6 or 7 fuel rigs, but there were 60 cars on the track, which makes it super super difficult to get the timing right. And unfortunately for our number 21 car, even though we had decent pace, twice when we got to the fuel stations in the first 2 hours of the race, we had to wait, and it lost us about 3 minutes, and the net loss combined with the pace of my other drivers meant that we were already 2 or 3 laps behind at this point. So my mission was to try and get us back into the top 5. We needed some luck and some strategies to go our way, but overall I had really good pace, and you can see here by sticking around with Calvert, who was in second place overall, our car was quick enough to be on the podium, but at the end of the day, strategy is the main factor in this race. Honestly, actual race pace, like your pace as a driver and your pace as a car, is not the primary factor here. That's maybe the third most important thing. Also, because you have so much traffic, if your ultimate lap time potential is 149 in this race, that doesn't really matter, because depending where you catch traffic, you can do a 150 to a 155, and that's not because you're bad at traffic management. It's that one lap you can catch 1 car and another lap you can catch 5 cars. You'll see that sort of unfold here. It's one of the reasons I was able to catch Daniel Calvitz in in this specific stint is because whoever the lead car is in a group of GT3s, they essentially hit that traffic first and slow down and become sort of, they move out of sync or of the rhythm of a GT3 lap time. So the GT3 cars behind will end up catching that car. Conversely, if you are the leading GT3 in a group of cars and you manage to get a break, you manage to get through three lap cars, build a small gap, and then catch the next group and get in front of them quickly, that will in turn give you a gap over the cars that were chasing you. So I know that sounds a little bit complicated, but it sort of unfolds that way. This track itself, Mugello, is absolutely phenomenal. It's one of my favorite tracks. I raced here in Italian GT my first year of GT racing in the GT Cup, and I won both races. I got the fastest lap and pole position, so it was a bit of a stunning weekend for me, especially in my first year of GT racing, and it's always stuck in my head as it's in my top 3 favorite tracks, along with Suzuka and Imola. It depends on the day when I think about which is my favorite. So with the GT3 cars and coming back here sort of 4 years later, I couldn't wait to experience it. And you'll see now we're heading down into a beautiful section. It's a downhill right, the rear's dancing a little bit, and then a downhill left. Through here, even in 4th gear at 160 kph, you have big wheel spin, and then you tip it into this long double right, Arrabbiata 1 and Arrabbiata 2, which has high G loads, and when you get to the top here, the rear sort of kicks out, and you're sort of riding the wheel spin over the crest down into a sharp right-hander, which in this specific stint I wasn't getting perfectly right, but you know, this track overall is so satisfying that there is no part of it that I don't enjoy. I can just tell you that when you get onto the main straight, you are super relieved to have a moment to rest. So you'll see that I made a small mistake there. I was trying to get a run on Daniel because I wanted to unlap myself here, but I couldn't take any big risks in terms of dive bombing him into a corner, because at the end of the day, they're the car in second place and primarily I have to drive for them. So there's no sort of big moves on Daniel here. He has a serious amount of pace as well compared to the other cars on the track, the other GT3s that he was fighting against, so I didn't want to interrupt that flow. So I was on the radio to the team asking to let me through, but they were sort of reluctant. They were like, just follow him, sort of be a rear gunner. So I overcooked it there a little bit and ran a bit wide, but generally I was driving quite smoothly. This is my first time experiencing this level of traffic. I had a small amount of experience in Abu Dhabi, the 12-hour, but there weren't as many cars on track. So here I was sort of learning as I was going. Calvert's has raced many races, multi-class races. He's a Nürburgring specialist, Nordschleife specialist, GT Masters champion, and generally a very fast driver. We were teammates last year in the Spa 24-hour, which we won together. So I think there's a bit of mutual respect there. He is so damn fast, and every time I'm close to him, I'm happy. Especially the level of experience and things that he's achieved. You'll see here, sometimes you have to go wide and offline, and you get a lot of pickup on your tires. It's really difficult to manage this traffic and stay in a flow, and you have to really try and you have to guess or anticipate and trust that the cars that you're overtaking can actually see you, especially going through this fast left-right. You'll see later there was a small incident between ourselves and a lap car, which didn't give us the room. I think he was more confused than anything. Going around the outside of this Porsche, this long left-hander leading onto the main straight, never quite figured out the perfect line. You can go with an early apex and then almost use it like in a parabolic style, or do a late apex in a lower gear and get better late acceleration. Both are quick, depends which one you want to do. Here I'm flashing Daniel. I'm like, maybe I can go to the inside. You'll see my windscreen wiper kept flying up in the slipstream, so you'll see every now and then I press the windscreen wiper button to get it away. Behind us is the car collection Audi driven by Rick Breakers, who's catching us. He is in P3, and Daniel is P2. So at the moment now, I'm sort of like a buffer between the two cars. Here, going down the awesome Aston Martin GT4, those cars look beautiful on the track, and the GT3s look even better. You'll see them in the Blancpain event next weekend, so that's going to be pretty rad to race against those cars. Going through again my favorite part of the track, and here you have to sort of like, when you go on the inside of this long right-hander, you have to, there's no heavy braking, so you're kind of flowing in and just making sure that the car in front of you can see you for a long period before you actually do the move. Same going down here, it's blind, there's no ways they're checking the rearview mirrors, they've just gone through Arrabbiata 2, rear is sliding, kind of what happened to me there, and they have no intention of letting anyone pass, so it's not an easy one. Here we have to sort of go down the middle, threading the needle. You got a Porsche overtaking a BMW 2 Series, and then we are overtaking both of them at the same time. Honestly, there was no point of rest on this during this race. It was one of my favorite stints I've ever done, especially that we're driving into the night. There was a couple of delays during the day, which led to the race starting an hour later, which meant that we got to drive into the darkness, which is hugely satisfying. It's my favorite time of day to be driving. It gets like a little bit quiet, and even though you have the noise of the car, there's also this weird silence inside the car where it's just you and the car doing your thing. So here we are now heading back to a big group of cars after we had a rare moment of peacefulness on the track for a couple of corners, and this is where things start to unravel a little bit for both of us. There's a big group of cars racing against each other. The slower cars can't really build as big a gap around slower cars than we can. So for example, a touring car versus another touring car, they tend to clump together. And this is what we're going to get here. So there was a sort of VW Scirocco prototype, which was probably the most difficult car to overtake on the track because the drivers weren't entirely aware. And here you'll see Daniel actually has an incident. He touches this car, the Scirocco, which pushes me to the inside of the curb. Meanwhile, the car collection Audi is going around the outside of that Scirocco as well. So the Scirocco has no idea where to go. I'm sort of left to fend for myself on the grass, and now have a lot of pickup on my tires, a lot of dirt, and this has unfortunately unleashed the Audi onto Daniel. Now, the whole reason I was able to so easily stay with Daniel wasn't because he was slow, it was because he had tires which were about 15 laps older than both myself and the car collection Audi. The car collection Audi had actually just done a pit stop and was on much fresher tires compared to the both of us. Here you'll see I have a big moment. I'm just going a little bit too fast after running off the track, picking up a lot of dust. So this lap itself, I'm now sort of hanging on for dear life, just trying to get the car back to some sort of reasonable condition to be able to get back into the 150s, 151s. Meanwhile, the car collection Audi has been released from my slipstream and is going to go after Daniel, who was struggling on the much older tires. So I wanted to see if I could catch back up and in effect go and fetch the Audi. I knew that I could match his pace even though he was on better tires, but yeah, at the end of the day that Scirocco sort of compromised both of our race, sort of moments in our stint for the Wochenspiegel team. So trying my best to catch up to the group again. There's still a clump of cars here that I have to cut through. The Audi is really cutting through them much quicker than I anticipated. And it's not making me panic, but it's just making me want to get there a little bit quicker. Here is another Mercedes. This is actually also a GT3 car, but I think driven by a gentleman driver. He wasn't as fast as other guys. So here, this should be easy flat, but I had to do a big lift to go through there so that I didn't hit him. Then going down the inside, that was done relatively easy. By now the tires are clean, so you'll be surprised how long it takes if you go off track, how long it takes for the tires to clean up again. A bit longer than what you see in a simulator, that is for sure. In terms of conditions inside the car, Mugello was actually quite cold this weekend, so it's probably one of the reasons I have a cold at the moment. So inside the car there wasn't, we didn't have to use the extra fan which blows air into your face. It was quite cool, and that sort of makes it more satisfying to drive. The only thing we had to manage was trying to understand these Hankook tires. It was my first time driving them, and they had this sort of weird peak where they'd sit at sort of a reasonable air temperature and then spike over 2 bar, which for all the cars was not ideal. That means that you get a lot of the tires were suddenly overheating, and the rear would start to slide quite a bit. So you had to manage that. I was turning up the traction control quite a lot. In GT3 cars you have traction control and ABS. You have to use it. The cars are set up that way. So instead of being a hero and trying to run 0 traction control, you'll actually be slower. So if the other guys are using traction control, you've got to do the same thing. So here we have again, the back markers are slowing up the GT3 cars, which is allowing me to catch up because I'm out of sync with their flow. But very soon I am going to catch up again with Daniel and try and, this time I'm getting a little bit more, not aggressive, but more forceful on the radio to let me through, speaking to the team, because as you could see there with the Scirocco, things can go really bad if we're busy fighting each other instead of trying to push forward. So if I can fetch that Audi and in some way slow him down and get ahead of him, this will benefit the car that Calvert's is in, the number 22 Wochenspiegel car. So here we are again with another clump of cars, and this is also some mixed class stuff. This BMW M3 or M4 was actually pretty cool to watch, but was for some reason actually quite slow in a straight line. I thought it would be much faster. They must be in a BOP, which is below their category, probably with the TCRs over here, like this Audi RS3. So I've caught back up to Daniel. My plan now is just to wait for some sort of command from the team. I will again run sort of defensive in case another car is coming, but if they let me through, I'll be super satisfied. We're nearing the end of this clip, of this video. Next weekend I will be at Monza for the first Blancpain race of the year. I cannot wait. I haven't raced in a full Blancpain season since 2017, so I'm super excited to race again in this, what is considered the top European GT3 championship. This Mugello race on our side, for my car, didn't actually end up with much luck. The following day I drove a double stint and managed to get us up to P7, but after my pit stop and driver change, there seemed to be a problem with the fuel rig, which forced our car out of the race after it caught fire, which is the worst possible scenario. Here I go onto the main straight. The instructions have been sent. I can go after the car collection Audi. So Daniel actually lets me through, so I'm going to go down the inside into turn 1. I hope you enjoyed this video, this sort of different way of commentating. Usually we commentate on sim videos, but I wanted to see what it would be like if we commentated on a real life video, real life onboard, giving some insight. I'm not sure if I'll be able to share the Blancpain stuff because of TV rights, but I will do my best. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed watching some of the onboard footage. And please follow and subscribe and like and share and do all those things if you enjoyed the footage. Thank you again, and I'll catch you in the next one.